So I want to call it a dialogue because it's a space for us to share and to create a safe environment for each one of us as unique individuals with our own experience and way of thinking, way of feeling, way of being. And I want to create a space where we are compassionately listening. And this type of listening is very interesting because it has a very specific purpose. And it's a deep listening that can help relieve the suffering of another person. You listen with only one purpose: to help him or her to empty their heart. So we want to create a space where we are really being respectful, and whether we agree to an idea, anybody's idea or not, this is not about coming to an agreement. It's about exploring ideas and allowing us the space to expand, to possibly grow, to possibly heal, to possibly come with new perspectives. And I think right now in this time, it's really important for us to be able to take in some new ideas about how we are perceiving, creating, and how then ultimately those things turn into action. So with that said, it would be lovely for everybody to feel free to participate. There is no judgment. This is just about listening to each other, our own condition, and learning from one another, because we're all absolutely intelligent beings who have certain experiences, and each one of us can actually learn from one another if we allow ourselves to learn from one another. So please feel free to unmute your microphone when you have a question. And an easier way to do that too, for those who don't want to speak out and identify yourself as the speaker, you can send a message to the host, the Brahma Kumaris chat window, and then we will go through those questions, because it would be incredible to have everybody's voices heard in the way they want to participate. So with that said, let's move on. So compassionate listening. So keep that in mind. We're listening with compassion to create healing. And I wanted to just show this window in terms of just putting data into a context that is not just local. It's not just in the space where we find ourselves right now, and also in our ability to see what is there, but in fact, to expand it a little bit larger. You know, right now we're in a very intimate space. Most of us are in our home, and we've been there for a while. So we want to broaden the vision from this local situation to a much larger vision of other communities and the world itself. So if you just look at the numbers and look at them carefully, you understand that a lot more is happening at the moment than what we are being told is happening, and also the way we are speaking to ourselves about what is happening. We've become so focused in one subject, one area of existence, that it's overcome our everyday thinking, feeling, and being actions. So just put it into context. There's a lot of people in the world, don't you think? And births are happening by the millions, trillions. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Life has this beautiful way of loving life so much that it just continues. So there's a continuum happening. There's these natural cycles. We're just now entering into spring. So things are happening beyond our space that we created, and that as a collective, we decided to create for ourselves. Broader image. And the reason why I decided that the deaths caused by water related diseases was so huge. I never even thought of that, right? So a lot of this information is things that are beyond our daily consciousness or daily awareness. So I wanted to bring some of that information that we're normally not aware of in order for us to sort of create a broader spectrum of vision. So there's a lot of things happening outside of what's happening inside of me, what's happening in my thoughts, my feelings, my doings, inside my home, outside of the city, outside of my nation, outside into the world, outside into the universe. So it's the broader and broader we get, the more we see sort of our relationship to things becomes less potent in some ways, and in others, very potent. So it's for us to be able to use our own internal intelligence to be able to put things in perspective and to create with the information in a way that doesn't become destructive, but in fact, it becomes constructive and it's nurturing. So everything, so I'll just preface this, everything in life has goodness in it because we're the ones who are bringing the goodness or the negativity towards it as well. So we have a relationship to the way we perceive, the way we look at things. Some things in life are out of our control. Only two things always remain within our control. What are they? Anyone? What are the two things that remain within our control? Well, first of all, we have a lot of experience right now with things in life that are out of our control. Can you name some of those things that are out of our control at the moment?
Yes, nature.
One at a time.
Sorry.
And also at the end of your comment, when you're finished with your thought, can you please just say complete so that the next person who would like to comment can also begin? Thank you so much. Go ahead.
I would say nature. We don't have control on nature.
Okay. What else?
The virus, complete.
The virus, okay. What else?
The disease.
Disease, okay. What else?
Whatever is happening in the world,
Okay.
not in our control, complete.
What else?
The news.
The news, yes. Those things seem to be out of our control and out of its control too, in some ways.
Death.
Death, okay. What else?
Pollution.
Pollution. Did you say pollution?
Yeah, yes.
Pollution is out of our control. Okay, so there's certain things that we think are out of our control. And what do you think is what are the two things that I might be referring to that are in your control always? There's not one time when it's not in your control.
So mind.
The what?
Mind.
Mind. What else?
Responses.
Responses, yeah. Responses, yeah. What else?
Decisions.
Decisions. Okay, what else?
Relation.
Okay, what else?
Breath.
What is it?
Oh, when you're breathing.
When you're breathing, that's under your control? Sometimes, right? That's one of the difficulties that is happening right now in to some human beings. They're not being able to control their breath, right? So that's a little bit out of the control. There's a certain biology, certain laws of the physical body that actually create, and that's out of our control sometimes, right? So there's,
Our connection with God.
our connection with God. Okay, is that in our control or out of our control?
In our control.
In our control, okay. So we're listening to a lot of ideas of how we are perceiving our sense of power. One is, I have no power over it, and the other is, I have power over it. It's just that simple. So one is you feel that you can create with it, you can mold it. The other is you can't. It's somehow other things are molding it, creating for and around it. So contemplate this. Through my experience of just different pathways and different modalities of experimentation, of how to use the tools that I have personally in terms of the way the mind creates the sensation of feeling and the sensation of body, and then also this other, what has been so kind of it's invisible and in many ways kind of intangible, we say, or unknowing. So there's all these things happening around us, and also that are part of our mechanics. And the two things that I find that seem to always be within our control is how we filter the outer influences. So that's first, how does it come into our eyes? How does it come in through our ears? The intake of things. How does it enter our system? We have a system of processing, a system of feeling, a system of just being with something, an event, a person, a feeling, a situation. So how are we filtering it? How is it first coming into our system? And then how am I processing this? How am I, with my experiences, my memories, my feelings, my thinking, how is that being processed, right? To bring a sense of form and a sense of meaning. So what's my story? So first you have intake. How am I intaking it? Through my senses. So how I see it, hear it, and how I feel it. So then the next process is the process of processing. I process through this thing called myself, and I bring form and meaning to it. So it's just simply a creation of my story about it. And then the next part of it is the output. How am I putting it? How am I putting this process, my understanding at this point, and then how am I communicating it out into the world? So, and that will determine whether I am responding or reacting in my response mechanism, and how I'm communicating that then out into the world. And then one of the most important things is, how am I storing this? How is it being stored in my memory bank? How is it being, so that when I have something that stimulates that memory, it comes into recall, right? A smell sometimes makes us think of an event or a person or something. So all the stimuli in the world is causing upon our insides, and it stimulates it sometimes in ways that are unexpected. Sometimes we go into the past, sometimes we go into the future. So it stimulates our sense of time, it stimulates our sense of feeling, or stimulates the sense of thought. And so the way we store something, the way we create memory based on these intake, how we process it, and then how we output it into the world, determines how we store it as well. And how we store it determines whether that memory will be a positive memory or something that's going to create pain. So keeping those things in mind. So I'm taking in information, and then I am putting it through my system, and then I am storing it away. So all these are very important components in the way we process life. Every everyday moment goes through the same process. I take in information, I process it in the best way that I can, or I understand it. Then I create a story about it, and I communicate that story, my understanding, to the world in my relationships, and then it's created into memory. Is there any questions about this, or anything that you would like to add? First of all, is it something that you experience? Anybody? Any questions?
Yes.
Any questions? Okay, so this seems to be easy to understand. I'm taking in information, I am intaking it in a certain way, and then I'm processing it, and then I am communicating it outwardly, but I'm also storing that event in my system, right, for future use. So what are some of the external influences that are being thrusted at you by your sources of information? So what are you feeling is coming at you at the moment? What's out there that you're allowing to come into your system?
Information.
Information. What kind of information is it?
Listening to your ideas, information.
Yeah.
So I'm processing that and seeing where we're going with it.
Yeah, okay. So you're processing that. It's really important for us to process, right? Information comes in. Do we automatically believe it?
At this point, it's not a matter of believing, it's processing.
Okay. So this is, I also keep in mind that the question is not related just to this.
Right.
That it's related actually to everything. So this is information, you're right. This is part of information resources coming in. But right now we're being bombarded by a number of other factors, all this other information that's coming from us at different levels of society, right? Even from each other. So we all are very unique beings. We're giving each other our feedback based on the way, as I described earlier, the way we are bringing things in, processing it, and then creating a story and communicating it, right? So all that is happening. So there are all these systems in the world. As we saw, there's a huge population, and each one of those human beings has a story that they process. So there's a lot of information, a lot of ways of seeing. And that's something that's really important for us to understand, that every single thing in existence is processing and creating. And we do the same. So right now, tell me something else that actually you're allowing to come into your home and you're processing it right now that is creating in you. Anyone else? So information.
Positive information that doesn't affect the whole.
Yeah. So right now we're just focusing on what's coming at me, who's speaking to me, what stories are being created, right?
Yeah.
Is the virus coming towards you?
No.
No. What? Is sickness coming towards you?
No.
No. So there's stories about, what is coming towards you, what might happen to you, right? What's going to happen to society, the positive, the negative. It doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative at this point. It's just a lot of stuff that's floating around that's actually coming towards you. And whether you are conscious of it or not, or whether you are looking at it straightforward or not, it's still around us, and it's actually influencing us, whether we're conscious of it or not conscious of it. That doesn't make a difference. It still has an impact. So there's energies around us, and all those energies are actually impacting us. So keep that in mind. It's not just about I'm isolated, I'm independent, but I'm also interconnected. And that interconnection actually is causing a field. So what kind of field are we creating individually within our own sense of this is the world to the collective of what is? So I've been practicing for a long time this idea of traffic control. And the reason why I find it to be really useful, and there's many ways of doing it, and there's lots of people's different perspectives on this. The way I do it is that every hour, on the hour, a little bit of music comes, and I know a lot of people who do know me, they sometimes hear, where's the music coming? Where's that Indian music coming from? Well, it's coming from my phone, because on the hour, every hour, I do this thing called traffic control. And the reason why I'm doing traffic control is because it's important for me to understand the thoughts. What is the thought that I'm having in this moment? And then, but taking it further, not just being aware of the thought, but also the quality of the thought. So in then turn, also the quality and the feeling I'm having right now, emotional intelligence. And I'm not sure if a lot of you are familiar with emotional intelligence, but that's just the intelligence of being able to capture and communicate your own emotional state, okay? So thoughts, feelings. So I become aware of my thoughts, my feelings. Also, sometimes in the moment, my mind is being distracted by a memory because it was stimulated. So I'm looking at the memory and what the memory is actually trying to communicate with me. Is it something beneficial or something that's distressing me? And then also I become aware of what am I yearning for at this particular moment? What's actually behind what I'm doing? What is my intention, my yearning? What am I looking for? Those are things that ground me. So can you, given all the influences around you, how are they causing on you? Anyone? How are they causing? And again, you know, this is a dialogue. It's the reason why I'm not showing my face or my form is because I think that's really important for us to communicate in different ways. And right now, it's not the time for me to be showing my physical body, but just creating a sense of sound, of ideas, so that it resonates just deeply inside of our capacity, without the idea that it's connected to someone, a person. So it's just a sounding board so that our own intelligence and our own sense of empty space, the echoes of our internal self, can actually be heard clearer because we're not distracted. So would anybody like to share their present state of thinking, feeling, whatever's coming up at the moment?
Yes, can I?
Yes, of course, go ahead.
Yeah. What the situation present is, the feelings is compassionate. You want to go and help them out, but you can't.
Yeah.
And so that's the sad feeling. And still, because what we are being taught spiritually, we do it mentally, we try to comfort them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of feelings I get. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and then feelings and yearning to help them is that's the only way right now, by mentally giving them, praying for them.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Sometimes it's just subconsciously there's still some fear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Yeah, I think that the when you're isolated and also in a situation where something is being imposed on you, and you feels like you're powerless, right? We have a feeling of possibly feeling powerless to do something about it or to create something better, right? Because we are such compassionate beings. We want to help. We want to create healing. And sometimes when that capacity is not being exercised, we feel disempowered. But there's many ways of actually going beyond the isolation, beyond the limitations of the body, and we'll go into some of these later. But it's really important for us to know that whatever it is, however it is that my thoughts are happening, whatever feelings I'm feeling, whatever memories are coming up and whatever yearnings are happening at the moment, whatever's happening is happening just the way it needs to for you, and it's perfectly okay. And now we create the space of how can we exercise this power of choice. How can I go from being in this state to creating a different state of experiencing? And that's also something that we'll go through. How can this be transformed into something more useful, more empowering, where I don't feel disempowered, but actually fully empowered, and where actually I can engage, whether I'm in front of someone, that is not limiting my capacity to actually give and to create healing. So it's about perspective, it's about the relationships we are creating in ourselves and the way we create story about ourselves that actually creates these limitations or possibilities. And we'll go into that. So, but it's really important for us to accept that whatever is occurring at the moment for you personally, forget about what's happening outside and the rest of the world. Just personally, whatever is occurring for you, it is what is happening. Accept that. Just the way it is. It is what it is. Now, there's something that you always can do, right? As we discuss, the two things that you can always do will show how to implement that. So how can I process it, bring it into my system in a way that it's going through my thought system, my feeling system, and my engagement system of actions in a way that is beneficial. So I'm always in control of that. How am I going to take it in, process it, and create story around it so that actually it's empowering? So we'll go into all of this. Any questions about this? Any other sharings that brave ones might be engaged with?
Not thinking it, but about sharing. And when we come to the question of what you call helping the thoughts and feelings, thanks to the technology, science, so we can help that way also without being around, I mean, personally.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that. Yeah, there's so a lot of times when we get engaged with these kinds of explorations and we are involved, we're in it, we're submerged in a kind of collective space like this. I was involved with September 11. From the first day, I was at the Marriott's Hotel right next door with the Red Cross working as a first responder. I have a number of other memories of first response with the organization where it was really about what is happening here. And the questions that kept coming up that everybody was sort of the filling their minds with, why is this happening to me, to us, right? So these questions come up in these moments where we're all sort of in the story together and the same stuff is happening. We begin to ask different questions. We go beyond our routine and we begin to, right now it's an incredible time because we're actually isolated for a lot of us, and we're given the opportunity to actually create reflection behind the event, which is very powerful too. So, and the other question to ask is is when healing prepares, I also do a lot of healing work, and the modalities of that always come to one point. In order to begin the healing, one must first come to face with whatever needs healing with acceptance. And the way it plays out is you have to see whatever it is just the way it is. For example, my mother was going through fighting cancer for the past couple years, and I was involved with that. And that was an interesting journey because it literally caused us to go into a journey of accepting, okay, this is what it is, but these are the possibilities, but we're not happy with just those possibilities. We're going to expand the possibilities. But never saying this is not happening, right? So you accept what is just the way it is, and then you expand from there. And you look into possibilities, you look into other resources, you look into other ideas, you look into alternatives. And so part of the healing process, and a very important part of it, is look at what's coming up inside of us, around us. So what is an internal thing for individually, and the other one is externally in terms of collective. So let's look, let's explore some of these ideas, some of these situations that, however it is that you may relate to them is okay. Again, we don't need to agree, okay? But respectfully, we can agree to disagree and just look at ideas in order to expand our possibility. So I'm going to just, right now, I'm going to encourage us. So we've gone through a few things. I'm going to take 30 seconds to do a traffic control right now. And I encourage you to just stay in yourself and just personally, just ask yourself, look, go inward. Just turn your attention inward. You don't need to close your eyes, keep your eyes open, but just turn your focus, your consciousness inward. Look and check the thoughts that you're having at the moment. Look and check the feelings that you're having at the moment and the quality of those thoughts and feelings. Look at your body and how comfortable you are. Your body is a resource, right? So look at your system. Then spiritually, where are you? So that's the other dimension we're going to be exploring. So one is on the spirit, one is on the mind, one is on the heart, one is on the physical body, one is on the individual, and then one is as a collective. So take note of what is present. Accept what's there, just the way it is, without judgment or needing to change it or having it to be something else. Just what it is. It is what it is. And in that second, also create a choice to shift. If it needs shifting, if it needs refocusing, refocus it. Where do you want to be? Let's be right here, right now, taking in information that might create healing. So whatever it is for you. One of the things that, the amazing thing is sometimes there's a lot of disagreement as to how things start because we are getting engaged with the institutions, the organizations, the governments, the nations. So these are abstract ideas when you think about the entities themselves. Yes, they have energy, but what they do have, all of them in common, is that they all have human beings behind them. And these kind of moments in time where we're in, as a collective, we are engaged in a global event, it really makes it clear how important each one of our decisions is. And I know that sometimes we think, well, you know, I'm just here, you know, whatever your reality is, you say, I am not that important in the big picture. But what these events actually show us is that one single person can create a catapult event. It just from one choice, things happen, and all of a sudden we have an entire world that's operating with the same story and thinking it in regarding the world from the same story and feeling from the same story and doing from the same story. So to give you an example, whether this story is true or not true, not sure, but this is how the story began in terms of this global event. Somebody ate a bat that was infected with the virus, and so on and so forth. Whether that story now holds true or not, that's not relevant, right? Just one human being decided to do something on their own, not because it was malicious or whatever, but it was simply just an act of being adventurous according to their own way of processing. But that one choice caused a global event. And we look at our lives sometimes as not having significance in the larger stream of possibility, in the larger scope of the global. But that's not the case. These events show us that each one of us, with each choice we make, there's something that is causing and affecting. And whether it be individually, in terms of this whole system that we have as individuals, or in our different spheres of life. So each choice we make becomes very important because we don't fully understand sometimes the consequences, the cause and effect, right? So one person's decision triggers a collective experience of suffering and destruction. And then just based on that choice, we begin, if we keep repeating it, it becomes a habit. Both as an individual habit, and then also as a societal, as a global habit, as a national habit, as a particular group habit, so a political habit. So we create these engagements as an understanding, and then we act upon it as if that's real and true, and we make it a basis for our existence, the way we invent, the way we create, the way we educate. So all of these things become important. So the way I actually think, my decision is so important. And every single one of us has an intelligence and also is absolutely connected to the interconnected web that makes not only my local world here in my apartment, but then in terms of the city I live in, this nation I live in, the continent I live in, the world that I live in, the cosmos that I live in. And now when we speak of different sciences, we think of quantum mechanics, multiple universes, right? So when I'm thinking of the virus, and I was thinking, you know, wow, this is very interesting in terms of how it's being described. And I find it to be very interesting because if you look at it, so I just kind of, the word that came in one of my meditations in terms of exploring what is this, and sort of the word came up with was a parasitic relationship, right? So, and this is what a parasitic relationship is. A parasitic relationship is one in which one organism, the parasite, lives off of another organism, the host, harming it and possibly causing death. The parasite lives on or in the body of the host. So when we look at the world, so this is a parallel story. So there's a virus in a human body and it's causing disturbance, but it's living, right? It's very interesting because we are looking at the virus from this is our enemy, as opposed this little virus just wants to live and wants to survive, just like all life. Life wants to live, life wants to grow, right? We've seen that happen with just looking at ourselves. We human beings love to live and we love to grow. Look at the population, right? So it's just life wants to live, it wants to grow. And so when I looked at it from the relationship, parasitic relationship, I thought, wow, this sounds like the virus. And then when I actually took it out from the perspective, like, you know, the number of people who are influenced, who are being affected by dirty water, it just creates a whole different story. So by looking at the earth, is the earth the virus? And the contemplation is, who's the organism that is living on the earth, who is harming it and possibly causing death? So there's this parallel. I mean, nature is trying to tell us something, and are we ready to listen? So in order for us to heal and to go to a different level of existence, we need to be able to accept what's actually occurring. So nature is trying to give us notes. So when we look at it from this perspective, we as a humanity, individually and collectively, because we're all participating in the creation somehow. By not saying anything, by just simply on a day-to-day basis, how we consume. We saw some interesting things happen in this period of time where it was the survival instinct that kicked in and the toilet paper was all gone. Interesting that it was the toilet paper that was the most important thing, one of the most important things, right? So it's perspective. It's about how are we actually aware of ourselves, not only in terms of ourselves, but also an awareness of the world around us. Anybody has a comment about this? And again, this is not to engage a negative process. It's really to engage different perspectives of seeing, which is very important. We need to expand our capacity to see it from a narrow perspective and actually expand it to actually see what is the relationship of this event in terms, and then how can we create from that relationship to create something beneficial for us to be able to transform and then engage a new space, a new thinking, a new invention, a new thought, a new creation, a new cohabitation. Any comments?
Om Shanti, brother.
So this type of processing and what we're engaging also brings us to I love this quote: events don't just happen, they come by appointment. A Greek philosopher said that, and it was actually the way of seeing that calls to the law of karma, which is very simple. It's the law of karma. It says cause and effect. It's an individual, also collective. So when we say, why is this happening? Well, all we need to do is check outside, go to the ocean, and we see that there's things happening that we are creating. The oceans are filled with waste. So one of the things, I was doing a project last year, and during this project, it was all about climate change, also about the oceans and taking a sense of responsibility for what we were creating. But it was all about the huge numbers of plastics and how there's gyros in the oceans all over the world. And all of a sudden, for 1 month, during this time, from the initiation, from the time I started the project to even before I installed the project, the media, everybody, it was all within the consciousness of everyone because the media was covering it all and it was directing it to this space of thought and contemplation. And before I even installed the project in the museum, I was astounded by how quickly as a society we went from this focus to something new. There was a new theme now. It was as if the oceans were now clean. There was no more plastic being produced, and we were being conscious about what we did with our waste. So again, karma, how are we creating, how are we taking, how are we actually relating to the cause and effect of things? So individually, collectively. It's very important for us to keep in mind. So things don't come without an appointment. Do you ever go to the doctor without an appointment?
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever go to the doctor without an appointment? No.
Yes. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to go to a doctor and not have an appointment. They won't take you, especially without insurance, right? So the law of karma, so karma is very simple. In the simplest way to say it is when I give something.
Isang oras ka na, tama na. Tignan ko na si.
So can I ask you to please mute your microphone? So the law of karma is very simple. I give and it will come back to me just the way I gave it. It's not going to change it. It's gonna, I give, I receive, okay? So it's really simple. It's not a complex thing. I give something and I'm gonna receive it back. And so in this process is I receive that which I give. How does intention affect karma? Anyone? How does intention affect karma? Anyone?
Because intention is based on a thought. So what is the intention behind the thought? And that's going to be the outcome.
Yeah. So intention is actually, what is the foundation of my thinking process, my feeling process, and my doing process in this particular moment? So what's the truth in this moment? Sometimes, have you ever experienced where somebody is smiling, but inside of that person, they're really angry, but they're smiling? So the intention is to not be truthful, but in fact, create a different environment, right? So they're communicating something that's not fully aligned with their state of being. So it's really important for us to even understand what is my true intention in my thinking, my feeling, and my doing, because that will also inform the way I'm communicating and being with it, but also the way I'm going to capture. So if I think that I can fool a person by smiling at them, when in fact I am not being so kind, that person actually can only give you back, or the universe can only give you back what the true intention was actually that you gave. So intention, the real intention, not the image you create, is actually what's going to come back to you. So very important. So the story we create around it is not what's coming back. What's coming back is the true intention of that moment. That's what's going to come back. Positive, negative, neutral, whatever. Is anyone to blame for our suffering? It's a big question. Is anyone to blame for our suffering?
No.
How many people are pointing fingers at each other at the moment? Anyone?
No one is to blame for any suffering. Suffering is, again, I mean, the suffering, the word suffering is again based on my understanding is a thought and how I perceive that, suffering, but no one is to blame for any.
Yeah. Yeah, and the most common practice actually in these kind of situations personally or collectively, is to start blaming each other. They did it. It happened because of that. It happened because of this. It happened because, you know, somebody went to the restroom at the wrong time and it happened. Whatever the story is that we create in order to justify the wrong does not allow us to accept the truth of what it is, right? It happened this way, period. There's no one to blame. It's just the mechanics, because everybody who was involved did it at the capacity that they were able to. So that we're all performing, right, life to the best capacity of our ability, whether positive, negative, or neutral. So no one is to blame for anything, but we're all participating in it, right? So we have to take what's our relationship to whatever is present. So we have to look at that, whether be it in the relationship that I have with my loved one. We participate in every single moment with everything around us. So we look at that and we look at how we are participating, not how the other is doing, right? Because our responsibility is ourselves. So nobody is to blame, right? Is that, but it all depends too. So right now, the situation is we all have different belief systems. We have different ideas about suffering. And also, very importantly, we all have different experiences with suffering. So our relationship to that may be completely different. So whatever your story is at the moment and your relationship is to these ideas is perfectly fine. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to explore new something and possibly expand into a new idea or new belief, okay? So what creates the pain? So that's also part of the idea. If I blame you, then you're the cause of my pain. If I blame the day, then the day becomes the cause of my pain, right? So we have to look at all these systems of processing. How am I filtering it as it comes in? How am I processing, creating meaning and form to it, a story? And then how am I storing it in such a way whether it's going to either be neutral for the rest of my life, existence, or it's going to constantly come up because I'm still feeling pain because of the suffering caused by something or someone or whatever. How can we use spiritual knowledge to change these cycles, right? How can I use spiritual knowledge? Many of us have practices, whatever they may be. How are you utilizing knowledge to actually create the transformation? You know, it's interesting because you can look at sort of, I like the idea of renewing yourself at New Year's, whatever the New Year's Eve is for you. Where we make New Year's resolutions. I'm going to change this. But most of us, when we make New Year's resolution, it's perhaps it lasts for a week, maybe a couple of days, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. The commitment of how we align with what we say we want to be, and we know and accept what should be for us is very rare, right? And then so the excuse becomes, I am human. It's just human. So there's a lot of, so in part of suffering and blaming, there's also excuses. So we excuse the karma that we're facing with excusing whatever it is and for whatever reason it's happening. What is the benefit of taking responsibility for our state of being, thoughts, feelings, and actions? Anyone? Is there any benefit in taking responsibility for the way I am?
Yeah, it keeps it simple and a lot of details not necessary. A lot of waste is eliminated. Just keep it simple. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I mean, the benefit of taking responsibility is just taking responsibility and, for whatever the situation may be, whatever it is, take responsibility and just try to continue to, understand what, happened or what I'm taking responsibility for, which is a continuous process, whatever, the situation may be again.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting, in regards to what where this workshop is about, because the whole ideal of responsibility and just acknowledging that word in and of itself can be, appear on all levels, but keeping it simple, just take responsibility for the self. The thoughts, the feelings, and the actions.
Yeah, it's very important. Anyone else?
There are 2 messages on the chat.
Okay.
It allows us to make necessary changes, change how we feel. And
can you repeat that again?
It allows us to make necessary changes and change how we feel.
Yeah, responsibility allows us to make necessary changes and what was that, the last part?
Change how we feel.
And change how we feel, yeah. When you take responsibility, the story shifts. It's amazing how that happens. Just one idea, one little tiny idea, one word, responsibility, it just creates a whole world around it, right? And then all of a sudden my reality shifts. So it's very important how we use words, what words we use, because they all hold power, they all hold energy. So is the soul who causes us to break our own commitment with our virtues a gift in disguise? So what is that saying is basically the person who comes in and we feel is the difficulty, the challenge in our life, the obstacle, are they there actually, it's a gift in disguise? Or are they there just to cause us trouble? What do you think? Anyone?
These are some really good questions.
What was that?
These are really good questions, because it does, this question does allow thinking process, which is on different levels, because because so virtues and then the disguise. But just because, based on experiences, my experiences, and observing others, on the surface, it may seem like, it's like just, it could be a problem, but at the end of the day, it's definitely a gift in disguise. But however, working through the whole process of whatever is happening at any moment in time in experiences, then, but yeah, it's definitely a gift in disguise.
Yeah.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had some interesting challenges in my life, and I can tell you that I actually have come to a position in my processing of obstacles and challenges, and those people who come in with these obstacles as, wow, I'm so excited to see what you brought for me. Because when you look at things from a different perspective, it actually creates a whole different world, a story that actually creates enthusiasm as opposed to horror, a sense of wanting to go towards it at greater speed as opposed to distancing yourself and moving away from it. So those are very important aspects to shift the way we perceive the other. So, and I think that right now, even shifting how we perceive this virus as the enemy, as the attacker, as the monster, as the plague, as the whatever, we would benefit from shifting that. What is this sweet thing that has the right to live as well as we do, but for some reason our two systems, our two ecosystems don't combine well in terms of one living within the other. And so, you know, but what is it that this sweet virus is actually trying to tell me about myself and about my world? Why is it here? It came by appointment, right? So our obstacles, opportunities for empowering and ascendance, right? To elevate ourselves. So that goes with that other question. If we allow the obstacle to become an opportunity, it will empower us and help us elevate our thinking, our feeling. It's just automatic. This is what's wonderful about spiritual work, is that it's very easy if you're committed to it. It's very easy, and it's not complicated intellectually to actually bring into practical moments. It's really practical too. So what do they teach us? Well, they teach us whatever you're ready to be taught. You know, it's up to the individual to see what these kind of opportunities, and sometimes we're just not ready to be taught by the obstacle. And that's also okay. It's just acceptance of this is where I am, and that's okay. Again, it's about always in the process of life, it's not about competition. It's not about competing me against them or me being better. It's kind of interesting. It just brought another thought. During this whole scenario, my friend made a comment that her daughter also was looking at the same thing, which is, you know, the way we are reporting this situation, America is the leading the number of cases of infection, leading in the number of deaths. And I'm like, word has power. Why would we as a society, as a journalist, as an editor, as a corporation that is supposed to be about information and about mitigating the wealth and health and prosperity and well-being of a society, why would we use this kind of dynamic of speech? We are leading. In this situation, I don't think that we would want to be leading any of it, right? So why would we create that kind of languaging? So that's something for us to contemplate. As an individual, I make certain choice of words, of imagery. How is that causing and affecting? How am I responsible for that? And then I also have to understand that everybody has the right to express their ideas in the way they can and the way they do. So just because somebody is speaking, I don't need to allow that influence to enter in a negative way, right? So I have to be conscious of the way I'm allowing something to come in, enter my system. So here's something to contemplate too. What is the quality of your self-awareness? So a lot of us have, I've been meditating for more than 20 years, doing a very specific practice. A lot of you have practices, but when it comes down to how deep is your awareness about you, about your world, but also just deeply, go deeper and deeper, your thoughts, your feelings. What is the awareness? What is your awareness if in 2017, 2018, 59,329 people and 31 left the planet? Did anybody actually know that? Anyone?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, so we didn't know that, but so how can that many people, that many human beings leave the planet and us not have an awareness of it? So where's our attention? So what are we putting our attention to, and also what are we saying is important to us when 1,093,582 people and counting have left their body simply because of dirty water in the planet? And every year for the past, God knows how long, 3,575,000. So where's my attention? The question to ask, am I aware? How aware am I of myself? How aware am I not only of myself, but also the community I'm creating and I participate in, and the society I live in, and the planet I live in? So physical, spiritual, vibrationally. What is my awareness of these factors? Why am I being this way? So what makes me work? So that's the question. What am I filled with? What fills me? What makes me what I am being? With myself, with my family, strangers in the world, my career. During this time when so many people were leaving their bodies, where was my attention? Was it on my career? Perhaps just focused on my family? So how wide is our focus? How wide is our focus? How wide am I actually looking into the world? Is it very narrow, or do I need to widen it in order to be more aware? How often, here's another thing to contemplate. When was the last time that for no reason whatsoever, you woke up and you said, you know, today I'm just gonna do something special. Forget about people that you love. I'm just gonna go do something special for another human being that I have no understanding or knowledge of. Just a total stranger. When was the last time you actually created a relationship with nature where you felt that you were supporting it? Things to keep in mind, right? Anyone? Does anybody want to share when was the last time that they just said, today I'm going to go do something for a stranger? Not forget about what's happening right now, because that's the interesting thing about that I've witnessed being a first responder with Red Cross, is that during these times, these big events, everybody wants to donate. The money comes out of from somewhere. I don't know where it comes from, but during normal days, it's very difficult to get people to actually donate for causes like homelessness, poverty, to raise the poverty level to 0. So we react to these events with amazing compassion and love and these beautiful gestures, that because we're charitable, right? And we're actually quite beautiful. But we need an event to actually show that beauty. Why? So those are questions. Those are just questions for us to contemplate. We are so focused in this, I'm in my room and this is the situation and there's a virus attacking me, about to attack me, right? Do we even understand the capacity of our physical body in terms of healing? Things to think about. So this brings me to the next part, and that is, it seems that we have a very body-centric existence. So I look at all of these different factors and I say, wow, we're trying to survive. And not only are we trying to survive, we want to make sure that the body's safe and it keeps on going. Just like the little virus that just wants to survive inside of a human being, but unfortunately, it's not compatible. So we're trying to survive, and look at what we're doing in the world. And when we try to survive, we usually come from fear, for fear of losing the body, fear of losing our lives, losing our money, losing our whatever. We also get into this thing of possessing ownership. It's mine. So we begin to hoard and not share. Our relationship to time also is like, I only have this period of time, my lifespan. I focus on the temporary, the stuff that's temporary, and I want to control everything, right? So there's a combination of all these different factors and the level in which they operate in us when we're in survival mode. And depending also on the work that we've been doing individually and collectively, those will show up. But these are the way, these response mechanisms when we're in survival mode actually are the same mechanisms that we use internally. So this is the way my body is not strong enough to fight the virus. That's a thought. So the minute I start saying that based on my own fear of it, then my body actually begins to respond to what I'm telling it. So understanding the connection between the thought and how I speak, how I create story, and then how it's actually creating on myself and then around me in my relationships, in my community, in the world. So it's operating on under the sole reason of preservation of the body at the center, is at the center. I need to live. I need to survive. Just like the little virus, it just wants to live. So just like us, we want to survive, and therefore we live in this planet. And what are we doing to it? What are we doing to each other in order to survive? Is it about survival? Or can we shift the story? So consciousness determines our reality, right? The way everything inside of me, whatever promotes my thinking, whatever promotes my feeling, whatever promotes my action, whatever your idea behind that, it's what we refer to as consciousness, right? Whatever your story about yourself, that's consciousness. So your beliefs determine your thoughts, feelings, and actions. So the stuff that I say is true for myself is going to propagate, it's going to create action. It's going to create thoughts, feelings, karma, my relationships, my narrow or broad spectrum of seeing, my need to protect or my need to actually offer, be open. So our words have the power to create worlds. So when I use, I am fearful, I need to survive, I'm angry at the politicians, I'm angry at the government, I don't have control of my situation. So all these factors, I need to hoard, I need to have, then I also create expectations about, oh my God, somebody else, another human being's going to come and save me. The government's going to come and save me. So we create stories around that through this process, this filter. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I was just thinking of something. So in regards to that previous slide, you know, talking about, you were asking where we all currently. I think for me personally, at least to my awareness, I'm not particularly concerned about leaving my body, but I think there are perhaps bondages to others. And there's this sense of, so it could either be attachment that, oh, what if, because, you know, the news keeps telling us to, you know, take care of those higher at risk in our family and the elderly in our family. Yeah. So it could either be an attachment that, oh, we're not ready to lose them, or part of me thinks, at least in my case, that there's this sense of guilt that if, you know, God forbid something were to happen, that then I would be blamed. So that makes me think that in of itself is having to change my thought process and belief system. And I don't know if that's related to what you were trying to say, but it's just something to think about, I personally feel.
Yeah, so that goes back to the idea of what two things, right? So what's in my control and what's out of my control. Do you have the capacity? Does the president have the capacity? Does a doctor have the capacity? Does a specialist, expert, anyone in the world have the control of when I leave this physical body or not? Anyone? Can they really tell you, you're going to leave this particular day at this particular time because of this cause? Can anyone in the world tell you that?
No.
No. However, do you think that the whole understanding of what you just stated in regards to fear or the fear of dying, that's what the story is about, the whole drama is about, that no one has control over any of that, the details of what's happening.
Right.
So, I mean, like, maybe, was I kind of clear on what I just said? Because I was kind of in a moment in regards to this whole, the all of the fear and what you have here in the diagram here, all of these words, and these words leads to, their thoughts, their expressions, so they're acted out. So the drama is happening, and so everyone is just doing what they do.
So it's very important for us to understand, again, that's why one of the first questions to ask yourself, is this in my control, or is this something I cannot control? So we just have two things that we can control always, and that's an internal thing. That's a personal thing. Anything outside of ourselves, we can't control. We can't control the health or well-being of anybody. We can't control the condition of somebody's thinking or internal process. We can't control a lot of just the natural cycles of things. We can't control certain things. We can't control certain things, and that's actually just an internal process. How can I internalize this in a way that's going to create benefit and truth for me? Okay, so truth is very important. What is true for me based on what I understand and how I've experienced? So this is another important thing for us all to keep in mind. I am an incredibly intelligent being with immense capacity, and that is extraordinarily important for us to keep in mind at this particular time. This is not the first time that some of us have dealt with disease, the flu, pneumonia, cancer, heart disease. I mean, you can go on and on and on. This is not the first time our bodies have been attacked or that we have recovered. We have to use our own intelligence of experience in order to actually get to the truth of how this state of present being, how I'm going to allow it to affect me. It's about you allowing an exterior force to affect you. Even the virus. Once the virus is inside of you, I can then ignite my certain circuitry to actually heal. And we know that the body heals extraordinarily, right? So these are all things to keep in mind. If I stay in the body-centric space, if we as society continue to work this way, look at what we're doing to the planet. Look at what we're doing to each other. Because we're working to survive. We're working on the temporal space. And that's something that's governing invention, the way we produce, the way we invent automobiles. We continue to invent automobiles with oil, gas. We continue to propagate things that we've already defined, understand they're killing not only humans, but also killing nature. Why are we doing that? Fear. So looking at things, how am I participating? How am I creating? How am I inventing? How am I writing? How am I speaking? How am I imagining? Because just imagining also brings into, it empowers material space. It creates a reality. So this is, anybody else have any questions or comments regarding this?
I do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just basically what you were saying in the previous slide, that nobody has a control to, like, if the president or the government tells you, oh, you know, you're gonna die, or the doctor comes and tells you you have only 6 months to live. Yes and no to that, because if the person believes it and it takes it internally, possibly, you know, the person is going to die. But like you said, if you say to yourself, you know, I have the power, you know, to fight this disease, whatever it is, because it has, in a way, we do have power to heal ourselves. But like what is happening right now is that the fear factor is so tremendous all over the news. And even when you talk to different people, the family, friends, they are so afraid of even, you know, looking at you. So it's I feel kind of sad to see how people have become, that they don't even want to, you know, be so close to you because they're so terrified that maybe I am the virus. So that's something that it has affected, and that many people, yes, you know, they might be dying, but a lot of people psychologically are being deprived of healing themselves because of this fear that is everywhere. We really literally bombarded and our immune system for people that are really older and they already have pre-existing conditions. Of course, it is going to be more detrimental to them compared to somebody who is healthy, compare that the immune system is strong, somebody who has the conscience to heal themselves. That is my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, that happens a lot. That happened with my mother. They said, you have 6 months to live, and here's, you know, almost 4.5 years later, and she's actually, the cancer went into remission, but we had to look for alternative forms and to, most importantly, change the thinking, right? So there's a certain
I have a question.
Yeah.
I actually lost my mother about 2 weeks ago. And I understand that she's left the physical body, but I'm looking for a sign that she's safe. You know, as in Hinduism, we believe that she's taken over or reincarnated into a new body and so on, which is good, which is fine. But I'm interested in finding out if there's a way to get a sign that she's okay.
Yeah, so here's a possible sign. Here's a possible sign. Karma, if you have certain belief systems in terms of, as you mentioned, reincarnation is a very fair system, a law. And this law says, just imagine everything about your mother, okay? All the beauty that she held, and she still holds, because it's not an end, right? It's just a continuum. So think of all the beauty that she is, and then have the faith that her karma has been created with that in mind, right? And also have the faith that she is on her own individual journey, and she's being given everything that she requires in order to expand, to go deeper into her whatever it is that she is, right? So it's a call for us in these kind of situations, actually, I actually recently also lost a number of people actually to the virus. And, but because I hold so deeply to the faith in the belief that everything in life for each individual is occurring absolutely the way it needs to. Because again, I'm not judging whether it's positive or negative. I'm simply understanding that it's exactly what each one of us requires. Because as we discussed earlier, even the difficult things have beautiful benefits, have beautiful gifts for us.
I concur with what you're saying. All I'm looking for is some sort of a sign. So is that something that's doable? I mean, I read a book where I forget the author's name, where he looks for yellow butterflies or yellow.
Yeah, I think if there is a sign for you, you shall find it. But it's a very intimate thing. One of the things to keep in mind through this discussion also is that no human being has the capacity to change anybody else's karma. Okay, so if there is that sign in store for you, you shall receive it at the right time. Just be patient. And the other thing I would encourage you, in order for you to come to a deeper understanding of the process that you're going through and also the relationship that you're looking for, is for you to spend time in silence and ask those questions internally. And there you might find new answers, new perspectives. But I encourage you to, this is a very, very intimate thing that you are calling for. And only you, on your own journey, in your own time, will you find it, right? So give yourself, be patient with yourself, and take the time to actually create the right environment in and out and around you to be able to experience that sign and that understanding. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Anyone else? So here's something to keep in mind. So really, this is very, very important for us to keep in mind in terms of how we are affected and how we process. Body conscious flow. External factors determine my identity. As we've seen, what people say, the story people are putting through these different resources of our information resources, friends, family, whoever it is, whatever it is determining my story, my internal experience of myself. Okay? So the way a body-centric consciousness occurs is that I am a body. So automatically think of yourself as the limitations of the body. So therefore I have a birth, a life, and death. So that's one limitation. I can move at certain capacity. I can speak. Some of us can't. I can hear. Some of us can't. So it's all related. Karma and the way I identify and relate to myself and the world is related to these things. So my whole reality is based on the needs and keeping this body alive, as we said before. So I can't even connect sometimes to what I call the soul. And I think that a lot of us have that in common. Entity, higher self, whatever you call it, you have difficulties finding that connection. And then moving from that connection of that self, the way that self represents, to even higher, to a divine space. You know, in these kind of events, I love the fact that God is always to blame. So we have a lot of stuff inside of us, a lot of story about how we see and experience the world and ourselves that's actually creating this flow. It's a very confused flow. It can go up for clarity and clarification and also empowerment. And when it looks downward into the world, it's looking downward into the world and out into the world in a very limited way. So that's the flow of consciousness. I am conscious of the limitations of my physical body. Okay. I don't understand the capacity of what I call or perceive. And even if you have a belief system that of the experience of the soul or the energy part of you, you're not fully connected, nor are you experiencing it. So you're blocked, right? Does that make sense?
So, brother, you're again, you're discussing pretty much people that, which we're all people, and we all have bodies here. So this is a level of consciousness as it relates to this whole process that's happening in regards to what's happening in the world right now. So you're speaking on a body conscious level in regards to those changes and the delay in actually becoming more aware.
Yeah, I am, because I think it's important for us, as I said, you know, the first part of healing is I need to be aware of what's there. I need to understand it. And not all of us are at the same level of understanding of what's actually there. Right? So we need to come to a common ground. So it's important for us to understand the system and what system am I operating on. It's kind of like, what's my software, right? So what's my software? If you make the parallel to a software, what's my software that makes my hardware, this physical body, run? So we have to become aware of what is that software. So here's the question for you. What do you believe happens to people after they die? We've already mentioned one, reincarnation, but what happens afterwards? Somebody leaves their body, what happens?
They stay in the space for a little while and then they come back.
Okay. Anyone else?
But again, in regards to belief, so at the conscious level, based on each one of us and how the dynamics of who we are, and having a belief, is belief the same as truth? Or because beliefs, you know, I can believe one thing one moment and then believe something else the next moment. So that's you know, belief is what it is.
Yeah.
However, there's a difference. I mean, you know, so that setting in that sense of confusion and complicated thought process.
It's important for us to understand that beliefs actually, for a time period, as long as we hold them, they become our truth. That's the truth that we actually are operating. That's the truth that actually is the foundation for our thinking, our feeling, and our being. So beliefs, if they're strong through experiencing experimentation with them, they will either hold for a long time or at some point they'll find a death. They'll die to you because they no longer serve you. You find that there's a different experience that actually takes you to a different space, and that's what you want to hold as truth.
So also, yes, I mean, I don't want to stay long on this.
Yeah.
However, in regards to, you know, belief in general, because I'm following this process. In terms of actually moving forward in this whole process, you know, processing things. So belief is what it is in regards to how I believe something. So staying on a conscious level and actually understanding to be able to move, because at this time or any time in this life, this existence, and we can take what's happening at this very moment with the conscious level. And I'm just talking about this because, you know, we were discussing cause and effect, karma, conscious, and what's going on in the chaos. But again, belief is belief. And then when things happen where we don't have any control over anything, whereby, you know, like say, I have to stop. Like if I believe that the virus didn't exist, I can believe that all I want, that would be my way of thinking or conscious level. However, the fact.
Well, that would
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
that would go into us of you're telling yourself a lie, right? So the virus does exist, right?
yes,
So
but I can believe that. I can believe it or not believe it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, you know, like what I'm saying. And I don't want to go too far off to distract everyone. But I just we can use examples. We can use examples, or we can use truth. Truth doesn't change.
So we're going to get to that. Actually, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. Yeah, so it's very
Okay.
important. We're going to actually get to that because beliefs actually is very important for us to understand. There's a difference.
Yes.
So, and we'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
got it.
Yeah. So again, just addressing what you just said. You know, beliefs shift. They're not necessarily absolute universal truths individually, right? Because we have beliefs, through our experience, through the way we were educated, we created a belief about something, about a subject, and that belief actually informs the way I think, the way I feel, and the way I do. But it's not universally, sometimes it's not universally true. And that's what she was going to. And it's dependent on the next question is, how would it be different if I was born in a different country, in a different culture? Well, it probably would be quite different because the information that you're given through your life experience is going to be quite different. It's going to be different religion, possibly different form of living. So all these things are informing us. So the outer experience, the outer world is informing our internal world. How we allow that to happen and what we do to it, beliefs is the story I have created about the stimulus that's coming in, the influences. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. And so here's one, you know, what do I believe? Belief systems are really important because they govern the way I experience. So one is God is like me and I am like God. So because we've been living in a body experience, body-centric experience, we created imagery, literally paintings and story about God looking a certain way in a lot of, on a lot of history, a lot of culture, right? Whether it's true or whether it resonates with us, that's not the point. The point is this is happening. So we create according to what is central to our experience, internal experience. So if I'm on one level, just the entire universe is from the experience of I am a human body, then it's going to have everything's going to come from that, the way I imagine, the way I invent, the way I create. And we know what that's about, right? We've already discussed some of that. But there's many other ways of looking. So if I contemplate and want to open my mind, I am like God. There's actually a phrase in some of the scripture that says God created you in his image. So what if the image is not a physical body and it's something else? And we'll get into that too. Does that make sense? So our reference point, because I am creating from this particular idea, this particular word, everything around it, everything around me is created such a way, right? And because this particular world has different needs and priorities, it's doing what it needs to do in order to hold it, to create from it. So meditation and yoga, there's many ideas also about meditation and yoga, and we do it for different reasons. To awaken, to balance, to connect, to open up, to find our nature, to be more natural, to spend time in silence, to get away from the noise, to see with clarity, to see something different, something beyond what I can see, to heal, to stabilize, to energize, to balance. So all of these are very important things. So even in meditation, yoga, the methods might be different, but these are some of the things that they all have in common. So although ideologies may have a different center, where they want to go or what they want to create a lot of times is actually common. So regardless of the type of meditation, you are looking to energize, you're looking to stabilize, right? So different ideas have different processes, but they get you to similar locations. Belief systems, these are all belief systems, right? So belief systems, they may all, you might have a million belief systems, they're all different, but at the same time, as I just mentioned, they're all leading to the same space. Responsibility, self-accountability, we've already gone through that. Why is it important for me? And versus absolution. Someone or something has the power to pardon, release you from guilt, obligation, and punishment for your doings. In a body conscious situation, what we are facing is literally somebody's imagination of, I will be pardoned from the things I'm creating. Whether it destroys, whether it kills, whatever. There's this idea that instead of me being responsible and that there's a karmic account that will be taking place, I will be absolved. And again, these ideas, these words have power and they're creating my world. So let's just take a moment now to do a little bit of traffic control. And check. One of the benefits of the traffic control is that allows me acknowledges our capacity to literally stop what we're doing and actually choose where we want to go. So that's also part of the beauty of creating a sense of stop. So it doesn't matter where you are, what conversation you're having, you can always stop your mind and actually take inventory. I think that's one of the most powerful things that you can understand or experience is that your ability to actually stop time, literally stop time and take inventory of what's there. And I think that's for us to keep. This is this stop that we just, sometimes we can't even imagine that we can stop. I think it's important for us to go through that experience, and I think that this event is about that stopping. We can stop and create something different. So what I'm also sort of engaged with, inspired to see is that what we're going through is this consciousness revolution. It's about, where is my consciousness? Where is our consciousness, both individually and collectively? So there's this consciousness. We know what body conscious centric awareness causes and is doing. We're experiencing it right now. And we've been experiencing it for a long time. And it's leading us to illness and destruction, not only of ourselves, but also the planet. So shifting that to something, this is the modality of processing. There's a consciousness revolution, where you have those people who've already taken on the journey to become more aware, to become more self-sufficient, to, connect greatly with nature, to the herbs, and then you have the others, the other side of the consciousness, and all of this is just perfectly occurring. So we are in a stage of shift, of transformation, and that's one of the beautiful things that I think we need to contemplate and also work out of. We are in a state of flux, of change, of transformation, however you want to look at it. And it's going from this body-centric to something higher. And I'll call it, to me, it's just we're going towards a different type of energy, a different mechanics, and it's about soul, the invisible thing that actually runs us, but we are aware of it. but we need to connect to it through experience and understanding. And Tesla actually said something really powerful, which I think is worth, and you can see does anybody want to read the quote? Would anybody like to read?
The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. To understand the true nature of the universe, one must think it in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Science works best when in harmony with nature. If we put these two together, we can discover great technologies that can only come about when the consciousness of the planet is ready to embrace them, like free energy.
Yeah, I think that was very powerful because it actually creates the environment for us to actually mold. But he also had an awareness that things come at the right time. There's a sense of we as human beings have to create the right mental, emotional, physical environment, spiritual environment in order to hold free energy. So we're in a moment in time where we can create that shift. It feels like this is the time where, and you know, there's been many other moments when people have said similar things, but I think this particular time is very important. It's actually causing us to really dramatically shift the cosmology. We've been working out of this survival instinct, this need to protect the body and protect the world around us in a sense of I have a temporary time here, so I need to grab whatever I can. And so it's calling us, and Tesla is basically saying we can change the matrix, the way we're living. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the matrix, but it's about we're existing as a society in a reality that's not real or truth. And you were getting into what is belief system based as opposed to truth, and that's part of the question. You know, we're getting deeper and deeper. We're being called to have this kind of engagement, a new dialogue. So one of the things that I was looking at, which I thought was a real engagement that again directs us towards a different way of perceiving ourselves, is intelligent design. And intelligent design is really beautiful because it looks at sort of there's this word called mimicry, and when we mimic nature, we begin to actually see that things never end. It's just a cycle. It's a continuous cycle of living. So you go from, you know, like the butterfly, it goes through these different stages. But life actually doesn't live. It's just the continuous phase, a transformation of the form. So the energy does not get destroyed, it just gets shifted. It changes the form. And in the same way, we need to also perhaps contemplate how perfect intelligent design is. Like, it really is mesmerized when looking at nature and the design of everything around us, including ourselves, and it's mesmerized by the beauty and the accuracy of it. So there's an image here, it's called the world cycle or the world drama, and it speaks of an idea that as souls, we go through a process of consciousness where we are at our highest potential, and then we go through a cycle of degrade. We become less and less aware of this nature, of this truth about ourselves, and it gets covered by all these different lives when we speak of karma and also the experience of reincarnation. So it begins to blind us from who we are. And so this experience and experience a cycle of the rise, the state of consciousness, and then how it goes, it degrades, and then how it returns to a heightened state of consciousness. And what's interesting right now, what's happening is a revolution in different fields. If you look at cinema, if you look at quantum physics, if you look at biology, if you look at psychology, all the ideas that we thought were real, all the beliefs that we thought were real, and that we based society, we based education, are actually shifting at the moment. And so this particular time is really amazing because it's actually saying, it points to the fact that perhaps we didn't start at a low level and then are going up into a higher level. Actually, we start at a higher level and we're going down, right? And then back again. So that actually is pointing to quantum physics in terms of particle, the idea that light has two different ways of communicating. And it speaks of this way of how we as conscious beings actually create our different realities. So biocentrism is the idea, it implies that death simply does not exist. It is an illusion which arises in the minds of people. It exists because people identify themselves with their body. They believe that the body is going to perish sooner or later, thinking that their consciousness will disappear too. In fact, consciousness exists outside of the constraints of time and space. And so this field, including a lot of the fields that deal with neuroscience, are pointing to the fact that we as these things that are speaking and being are beyond just the functionality of this human form. There's much more that is happening, that the originating frequency, the originating inspiration for life is actually occurring outside of the physical body. It's a different component altogether. And in this time where we are actually contemplating, we're forced to actually contemplate, what is death? Are we dying? And so it brings up a broader perspective by which to look at, do I die? And what does that really mean for me? And I think that's a very important question to be asking ourselves, because we're one of the few societies where death is not part of the everyday conversation, in a sense. And so now this question of what am I, and how does this idea of what dies and how it happens and what happens afterward becomes very important. And it's also not a fearful thing. It's actually one that will empower us, because it will empower and inform the way we create. So quantum mechanics is really looking at the connection. It's very interesting because now there is this fusion that's actually calling us to bring together a lot of philosophy, religious ideologies, and just ideas of spirituality into connection with the scientific research. And there's a lot of research that's happening where it's connecting consciousness, and it's actually looking at how consciousness, how I think, how I feel, how I do, actually shifts the conditions of time, space, right? So it actually influences the condition of matter, the condition and the way things on a quantum physics level are operating. And a lot of us have been doing, work with meditation and looking at every day, if I meditate and I create a certain environment for myself, and then I propel that environment, that vibration out into the world, will it shift? And what quantum physics is now saying, time and matter are influenced by the way I am, my consciousness. What I have put inside of myself and called either belief or truth is creating the world around me. So if you think about it from an individual to a collective, we have created this, right? So what is it trying to tell me? What is it trying to tell me? What is it trying to teach me? There's a connection between me and what's occurring. And it's not harmful. It's not supposed to be destructive, but I'm creating it into a destructive situation. It's actually here to assist in my shift of consciousness in order to propel something more elevated. There's a lot of stuff that's happening also again in quantum physics, where the idea of light and the concepts of what we call spirit or soul, and also the connection between the mind from neuroscience, electromagnetic fields that actually create and cause upon the physical body, and sort of the origins of those magnetic fields influences are being studied at the moment. So again, everything in the consciousness, collective consciousness, is actually propelling us into a certain direction, because in fact, we're actually being told you are ready to take this leap forward. You're ready to take this leap forward. You've been working, enough of you have been working on the way you are constructing, the way you were experiencing, in such a way that as a collective, you're ready to go to a different level, right? And we're speaking about, when you look at quantum physics and how it actually propels in terms of energy, it's about clean sources, very potent sources, infinite sources of energy. And so we begin to look at these things and understand their place in this particular time. And this particular time, in terms of this here is the little white section in the world cycle. It's a confluence. And the confluence is about different ideologies. It's about us coming into a position of understanding individually and as a collective, where we say, whoa, this has to end. This doesn't feel like where we want to be, nor where we want to continue, but let's clean up our act. This is a time for self-reflection, revelation, and where we are actually cleaning up our act. And if you look at what's happening in terms of diet, if you look at what's happening in terms of spiritual practice, if you look at what's happening in terms of invention, we're looking towards a cleaner, purer way of existing. So it's about purification, really, because we're entering a new era of higher elevated self and human condition. So there's a lot to actually look forward to when we look at the situation, and we look at just from a narrow perspective of, wow, I'm in my room, there's a virus out there that wants to get me. There's a survival instinct in which I want to protect this physical body. It's calling us to say, you know what, there's more to that. And that act, the call of the time, is to break out of the dream, the matrix, whatever you want to call it. And this process, it's a beautiful process called the process to die alive. And the process to die alive is to allow the old self, the old way of seeing, the old way of hearing, the old way of speaking, the old way of being, individually and collective, to literally die, so that a new version of you, the real you, the natural you, the truth. So one is the beliefs that are waste to die away, and then this emergence of a new possibility, a new creation. So you're being reborn. Your consciousness is shifting. So you're letting go of one consciousness, one way of operating, and you're putting in a new software. So we'll take a little 30-second break here. I know that this is a lot of information, and please feel free to ask any questions or anything. And there's a lot here, but it actually, when you put it all, bring it all, there's these moments of silence where we're just going to take a break now and just be with it. A lot of information, now just a little brief silence. So in this process of actually what we call dying alive is a process that you're being called to and asked. You're asking yourself this question: am I ready to let go of my present identity, my religion, my education, experience, culture, age, gender, political affiliation, social status, expertise, desires, preferences, judgments, competition, self-awareness, spiritual, and everything else that divides and causes conflict in your world? So it's a big question. It's a big question. In order to fully let go of something, you have to let it go. Because we have been mixed in our approach to the way we work and the way we operate, some good, some not so good, that we have mixed results. So it's really asking us, are you really ready to go into the space where you can accept free energy? Where you're willing to let go of any negative thought, any negative processing that you've actually created in yourself, and going to a different reality, which is about eternal space, which is about your own power. So that's the question. Are you ready? Are you ready? Anyone?
Yes, we are ready.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we are ready.
Yeah. So in Avatar, it speaks this movie that is quite popular. Billions of people saw it. It says something. It called on to this idea of I see you, when the two beings look into each other's eyes, and it was a recognition of not looking at just at the body itself, but actually a recognition of seeing into something deeper, something more eternal, something more truthful, something more real. And it's the consciousness that's occurring, it's happening on all levels. Films are now speaking of the existence of soul and the experiences of consciousness, and the shifting of a consciousness from one form to another. In this particular instance, there's a human being and there's an alien body, and you take the consciousness from that form onto the other form. So however the story is being played out, it's actually calling us, look, there's new possibilities of experiencing. How many of you actually believe in the soul, or an idea of the soul? And any of you?
Oh, brother, you.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I keep getting stuck with this belief,
I
this
do.
word
I do.
believe. But yeah, it exists. I experience all the times about the experience.
Yeah, the reason why it's important to use belief because it keeps it into the space of each person.
Yes, I understand.
Is a unique individual that has a certain way of seeing and processing, and
Yes.
wherever they are, it's perfectly occurring.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why I'm using beliefs. So if I use truth, then it has to be true for everybody, but everybody's not in the same place and time, right? So it's really about showing respect to each individual's intelligence and also where they are in the present moment, that I use beliefs, because it's in the awareness that we are all in different space and time while we sit here in the moment. So the anatomy of the soul basically, if I told you, are you ready for something new? Soul uses the body and its sense organs to express itself in the physical dimension. The brain does not think. Thought waves originate from the soul's conscious mind and flow into the brain to ignite the neural pathways responsible for bodily function, expression, and healing. So, and a lot of people are doing actually a lot of experiments with healing and the body, and how there's different dimensions, frequencies that are occurring when somebody has the right mindset and the speed in which they can heal the body, right? So, and it's actually touching upon this idea that the soul is a separate entity from the body, but there's a connection between the two. And this particular diagram, it actually shows, we know the physical body, and there's doctors that are really, really aware of it and know how to mechanically fix it whenever it's not well. But what we don't know too much about is actually the mechanics, the ecosystem, the biology, the anatomy of the soul. And here is an engagement in that possibility that instead of looking at this energy, this light, as many cultures have described it, this entity which we know exists, but we haven't yet figured out how to articulate it. Not only its form, its resources, its power, its dynamics. Here is a way of possibly seeing it from the perspective of, wow, this actually is a system and it processes. It has a process involved with it, and actually it's causing upon the body, right? And it can be in harmony or it can be in conflict with it, depending on the level of my consciousness, depending on the level of my open or closed awareness. So how fluid is my consciousness? Am I willing to open up to my full dimension for my full capacity, or do I want to stay just in the comfort of what I know, the body? So those are all, huh?
I wanted to ask a question, please. Forgive me for interrupting.
No, please.
Well, I'm kind of a bit confused. Are you making a distinction between consciousness and soul? I'll just speak from my own understanding, that, and I'll use the word believe since you clarified that. I believe that I am soul, and which is pure consciousness, that is my true identity beyond all those things you said before, you know, the other identifications that we have in this world. So would you address that question, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, sure. Consciousness, actually, the reason why I'm using consciousness in this way is because there are many schools of thoughts in terms of consciousness. Some say consciousness is the brain. The process of the brain, the consciousness lies within the brain, right? So the position, because we've been a society that has been functioning out of a body-centric experience, we understand consciousness as the occurrence of what's actually happening within the brain space. what this particular diagram is expanding that, and it's saying consciousness is originates and is actually what the soul is. So the soul actually is the consciousness. It's the holding of the conscious mind, the intellect, and the subconscious mind. The personality and the being of that you call I is actually not held within the brain or the body. It's actually, that is the space of the soul, which when you leave a body, it continues, right? So there's that, the reason why I'm using consciousness this way, and I'm also making sure that it takes into consideration the different thought waves, the different experiences with this concept. So we're moving from body, the consciousness lies within the body, to the consciousness is a spectrum of the soul, which informs and causes the body to be a certain way, which then causes the experience in the physical space. So that's why the brain does not think. That's a different dimension. Originally, I mean, forever, we've been thinking that thought actually it originates from the brain itself. But now science is showing that, oh, wow, when a brain is dead, when a patient is in a vegetative state and considered brain dead, it actually shifts its condition. You do brain mapping, and what happens actually that although the brain cannot communicate fully with the system of the body, there is a communication. So you pose an idea, the brain, the consciousness actually causes the brain functions to map out as if it was actually doing or causing. So the areas of the brain that actually would light up when an action would be created that would indicate a normal function were actually occurring. So it meant that the brain was not the originator of the understanding, the processing, that actually came from a different space. And that's why it's pointing to, oh, there's this entity called, that has been, called many different things. They're calling it consciousness, because a lot of scientists are also saying we don't want to refer to it as a soul because of the conflict between spirituality and religion that has been so traditional. But now scientists are being forced into, how do these two things point to the same idea? So that's where we are. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'm while you're talking, and thank you so much for really explaining that so well. I'm kind of considering the distinctions between thought, awareness, and consciousness. I mean, consciousness sometimes, I mean, I'm trying to make the distinction between the mind and the soul, I guess. So and I was hoping maybe you would talk a bit about that.
Yeah, very quickly. So thoughts are created by the conscious mind, which is part of the soul system. Okay, so if you look my body, and then above that, it's what I would refer to as the soul system. Okay, the soul system is the consciousness, the intellect, the subconscious. So thoughts are created by the part in the soul called the conscious mind, and that creates thoughts, emotions, and desires. Okay, so that's where those things come from. The intellect is the part of the soul which actually holds everything you fed it, all the belief systems. It says, oh, based on what you say you believe in, this is what we need to do here. This is our action. This is how we need to communicate out into the world. Okay? The memory then is stored. The memory of however I responded based on that original thought then gets put into the subconscious mind. So it's stored away as a memory, and it can affect your process later on depending of how you stored it. Remember how in the first part we said that? Now, this whole thing, the conscious mind, intellect, conscious, the subconscious, those are all components of the soul, and that is the whole thing itself is what is consciousness. right?
Yeah, I have to apologize because I'm audio conferencing, so I'm not seeing indicated. So I apologize, but maybe I can find a way to access the diagram you're speaking of.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to you about it afterwards too.
Yes, thank you so much for everything.
So basically, what we're going into is this exploration of nature. So not beliefs, not what I think I am, but what I am in nature. And there's different components to that system. One is an eternal component, one is a temporal component, which is, one is the energy, the other one is the body, and then the other one is an integrated self. Now this system, how it works, based on what articulates it, what is that central, just like the human body. So you have this experience here. The nature of the soul at the center, consciousness creates reality. Nature, the natural virtues of the soul is peace, love, purity, spiritual power, bliss. Words have the power to create worlds, right? And beliefs determine our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So remember the same chart, but from a body-centric experience. So in a soul-centric experience, it's only natural to be working of the energy of I am peace. And so invention, writing, how I design a world, how I use the natural resources, my relationship with nature is going to be based on this nature. So that's what we're being called to activate. And I think we all feel it at different levels. I think this whole surgence of yoga and the surgence of looking for different ways of spiritualizing life, you know, outside of what we were born with. We're out looking for greater truths, greater experiences of what this dynamic is about. And is there any of you who are not looking for, in one form or another, peace, love, purity, spiritual power, or bliss? Or are you looking for the other in terms of the body conscious experience? Anyone? Anybody who would prefer to be working out of anger, out of greed, out of whatever? Anyone?
Well, see, that's the thing. No. Well, see, okay, so I'm gonna. Now, let's just continue.
Okay. Well, you're welcome you're welcome to have a conversation. You're welcome to have a conversation with me afterwards too.
No, I'm good.
All right. So, but for now, let's mute your microphone. Thank you. Okay. So the flow of soul consciousness, and the flow of soul consciousness is spiritual knowledge, meditation, determined identity. So I'm taking in information, knowledge that actually purifies the way I am being, which is wasteful, which doesn't work, which is creating disturbance, not only in myself, but also around me. So, and I'm also working out of I, the soul, the virtues, the powers of the soul. So I'm becoming much more aware of the ecosystem of what that means. What is a soul? What does it look like? What is its language? How does it communicate? So I'm exploring that. That's where I'm wanting to go. And that's how I want to exist from that position. And what happens when I'm actually taking information, truth, and I'm working through it from a soul level, and then I'm using that as the foundation, and it's hitting the body becomes resilient. It heals quickly. It has more resistance against infection. It has more resistance. So if I work out of that, what I'm doing is I'm becoming much more powerful and capable. And the experience in terms of the body functions is peace and happiness. So I'm able to articulate, even in difficulty, a way of processing that creates benefit and a state of peace and happiness, right? And so it also shifts the way I perceive myself and the way I articulate, that I communicate with the world. It becomes a fun playground, a paradise, right? So we sometimes think that this sense of clear, accurate being is not possible because I'm human. So human to me means I'm identifying with these kind of excuses, means that I'm identifying to the body and not fully engaging my potential. So because when you fully engage your potential, it's a completely different experience. Does that make sense? So I know that I've gone a little bit longer because we've been good with discussing these things. So is it okay for me to take a few more minutes to keep on going? There's only three more slides. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in order for us to create capacity, we need to change the way we perceive. So first thing that we need to do is remind ourselves, I can only experience what I give myself permission to think, feel, do, or be. So if you want to experience freedom, if you want to experience healing, if you want to experience truth, you have to give yourself permission to let go of whatever is in the way of you experiencing that. So I have to commit to giving myself permission to do these things. Without permission, you can't do it. Your system doesn't work that way. You have to have an acknowledgement that that's where you want to go. Next thing is remain aware. Everything starts with words within the mind, thoughts. So thoughts create feelings, create actions, and as accumulation, they create habits, and accumulation, then they create a state of presence. So I remember this, remain aware. I am the creator of my thoughts. I am responsible for the quality of my thoughts, and I have the power to change my thoughts. So whether we are in isolation, alone, or in a group, we have those powers. We have the power to create. We have the power, right, of making sure that we have the right quality of thoughts to empower us, and we have the power to change. So whenever something is feeling wrong, hurtful, you change it. You look at it, you resolve it within yourself in order to make it beneficial. And ask yourself, does this thought, is it depleting my body, my sources, or is it elevating? And that's a very easy way. So if the answer is no, it's depleting, I feel sort of drained, I feel de-energized. Then you say, you know what, it's time for me to change this idea. I don't want to play with feeling weak, disempowered, unable. So just the thoughts, think of this, okay? Become aware that the thought from the brain, from the soul, and that vibration has the power to heal not only yourself, but also the world. So if you know of people who are suffering, send them out good vibrations. Keep their mind clean and send it out. And then, you know, this idea of time. So you can just read the past, present, and future, keeping those aligned, being the master of time. Past is finished. You cannot change anything that's happened already. And present is molded by my spiritual awareness in the moment. So using traffic control and other practices to keep check. Where's my thought? What's the quality of my thought? Do I want this? Do I not want this? Discard what's waste. And actually put that which is useful only into practice to create power, to create nurturing, to create healing, to create capacity. The future, we don't have to worry about ourselves. we don't have to worry about the future at all, because if we are in the right place in the present moment, the future will take care of itself and it will be amazing. Because how I am creating right now, as we know from karma, what I give is what I take. If I'm only giving positive thoughts and creations, I will actually be contributing to a positive tomorrow. So you're in charge of that. If you find yourself in difficulties in terms of this idea of past actually has a way of coming back because of the memories, because of pain, because of hurt. But we've gone through some of these ideas in terms of how can we actually relate to those in a different way where we're transforming them into something much more positive. If I control the thought and the relationship to an event or a memory or a feeling or a thought, then what happens? I am in control of how that is molded in order for me to take benefit. So you are in control of your internal world always. And these are just 10 practices to purify your energy, which right now, in many ways, can be very, very useful. And this is something that I've had for years, and that I actually refer to on my refrigerator all the time, because it just keeps these ideas alive. The things about these kind of moments is that they trigger us to react. Ooh, this is happening. Let me change the way I'm doing this. But from my experience and seeing a lot of devastation and these types of events, is that the reaction dies out afterwards. Who we were in those periods of time changes. And a lot of times it just changes to I forget about this moment. And then the transformation doesn't occur. So it's really about, are you really committing to dying alive, to let go of the waste, to let go of the stuff that's actually causing so much disturbance inside of me, in the world, and as an individual and as also as a collective. So I thank you so much for being patient and going through this adventure with me and staying with it. And I welcome also your comments and also your questions, if you have any. And I'm happy to dialogue on, with your questions afterwards, if you want to stay. But for now, let's just take a moment, and I just will articulate a brief guided experience, and then let's take 3 minutes of silence to say goodbye. So why don't we start now? Can you put some music? As we move through this time, let me remember that there are many things out of my control. Let me accept that those factors exist in my life. But let me also take on the responsibility that I have the power and capacity to create opportunity in any given moment. By paying attention to the quality of my thinking, my feeling, and my doing. I understand that every thought I create is valuable. It causes and affects myself and my world. I am ready to explore the nature of my internal peace, my internal happiness and bliss, my internal power, spiritual power. My internal purity and my absolute self-love. I am ready to experience something beyond what I know, something beyond what I understand. That will take me into doorways of possibility. I always am ready to keep my self-respect. All right, Om Shanti, everyone. Om Shanti means
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
yes.
Thank
Om
you.
Shanti.
Om
Yes.
Shanti. Thank you very
Shanti.
much.
Yes.
So much.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Did anybody want to have any questions and stay a little bit after everybody leaves, or while some of you want to stay? Does anybody have additional questions?
Excuse me. Om Shanti. Can you send me? Can you send it on the Zoom? The 10 things that you had shown the last page, last slide.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Just remember, each one of us holds the divine power to dream worlds into reality. So let's dream up a beautiful new world.
Yes, yes, of course. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Before ending the session, I have an announcement.
Okay.
There are other events as well, which are hosted by Brahma Kumaris Los Angeles. If you want to visit, you can visit bklosangeles.org, and you can register yourself or feel free to join for the evening meditations, which are from 6:30 to 7:30 every evening. Om Shanti.
I joined late. I wasn't aware of the time, but I appreciate everything. It was really nice.
Thank you, sir. I hope that you are doing well and staying beautiful and resilient.
Om Shanti. We have Geeta Ben who has to talk. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, brother.
Om Shanti.
It was really beautiful and very practical. And we can say thank you very much. And I'm sure all of you also, whatever you heard, how you can put in a practice, and you can see how we can help over this planet. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Okay. Is there any additional questions? All right.
I was hoping that you could, if I'm not disturbing the rest of the group, if you would kindly let me know how to access those slides that you were showing?
Yeah,
Are
can you send your email? Can you send? Oh, actually, why don't I just? I'll email it to you.
Okay.
So why don't I just take your email?
Okay. Should I call you back to give it to you or something?
You can just why don't you just here? Why don't you just give it to me now?
Or I could email you with it.
Okay, email me.
And would you? Yes.
So it's EYEVALUE and then letter U, I value you at gmail.com.
Okay, EYEVALUE@gmail.com.
That's right.
Okay, and this is Santi, right?
That's right.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Santi. Thank
Absolutely.
you for
Be well. Yes.
too.
Enjoy. Okay, thank you, everyone.